Why am I here? So on Friday, I'm welcoming guests, and I'm trying to highlight important people to me and to community, and like give them a stage to introduce themselves to the world, to the industry. And today I wanted to welcome Kevin Milne. Okay, so Kevin is a specialist of Mainframe Hacking and also a coach and a, a trainer for fencing. And but I wanted to give you, Kevin, the voice so you can introduce yourself better and talk about more about yourself. Yeah, there you go.
So probably one of the people who's been pen testing probably for the longest. I did that for 15 years, and then in 2015 moved on to risk management, basically because I got fed up writing reports. Um, but after 5 years, came back to it in 2020 because I realized I was really missing it. So yeah, I mean, I've been around since actual code red, Sasser, all of these worms and viruses actually came out. And very recently, probably a couple of years ago, I started looking at mainframe hacking. Basically, because the place there's not an awful lot of people who do mainframe hacking at the minute. Some of the best ones are people like Soldier of Fortran, Big Engine Smalls, another guy called Mark Wilson, and they're great, and they're part of the Mainframe Hacker Society, and they're great. They've helped me quite a lot, but there was very little on it. So, it is a steep learning curve, but I think it's a really important subject. And hobbies wise, I've been a fencer, as in sword fencing, since I was 12, which is 40 years ago. I started. Um, Fenced internationally. I fenced in Poland before. I fenced in various other places as well, and it's good. It's a big sport in Poland. So done that, and I have also coached because at the end of the day, I just like teaching. So my cyber mentoring side and my sports coaching side, they all kind of working together. But that's kind of my story. You know what I mean? So yeah, but that is kind of it. Any sort of technology I'm interested in, um, and I've done a lot of stuff across the time. But pen testing is great fun.
Okay, so
It's good.
yeah, you already answered that question a bit there, but can you tell us about your journey? How did you get started in cybersecurity and working with mainframes?
Yeah, sure. So when I started in cybersecurity, it wasn't actually called cybersecurity. It was IT security, we called it. So originally, back in 1995, I was a Novell NetWare consultant. Now, Novell NetWare doesn't exist anymore. Um, so it was the way that clients and things connected to servers, and it was all before the internet, and it didn't even use TCP/IP. That's how long ago this was. So I started off as a consultant, and at one point I started to get into firewalls, etc. And this was like Cisco firewalls, Cisco PICs firewalls, etc. Because I went to do a consultancy job for the company I was working for, and I realized, hey, this is really good fun. This is good. So firewalling and networking then became a big thing for me in probably 1998, 1999. Someone, a student of mine actually, who had been teaching networking, handed me a book called Hacking Exposed, and it was version 2. So this was a long time ago. And I read it and I was like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe people can do these sort of things. And it was almost my Bible for many years. Great big thick book, and it was great. So when I read Hacking Exposed, that's when I started to get into pen testing, um, and from there have been working in defensive security and offensive security, such as pen testing. And for a long time, I was one of the few pen testers in Scotland, but Now there's lots of them.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's good. It's not particularly easy to get into. It's a bit easier now, because people want pen tests, which is a great thing. But that's where I started off, really being a consultant, doing lots of networking, doing lots of server stuff, finding a book, going, wow, this is incredible. It's really interesting. I want to do this, and then getting the tools and doing that. So yeah, a long time ago, and I'm still doing it now.
Yeah, that's really impressive. Thank you for sharing. Uh, and what drew you to specialize in both mainframe hacking, and what was the reason you, yeah, what I will ask again, what drew you to specialize in mainframe hacking, and what was the reason you decided to write a book about that topic?
Ah, right. Okay. So, um, basically, 3 years ago. Yeah, it's 3 years ago. So it's only recently. Much as I look quite old, I up until 3 years ago, I didn't really understand anything about mainframes. I had used them, right? Because maybe back in 2001, 2002, the company I worked for, their email system was on mainframe. So you had a what we call a green screen, a terminal system, and you logged in and you actually sent your emails through that. And a lot of the time, people will use it for things like change requests, etc. So you don't see the back end of it. And to me, it was a mystical, amazing technology that I didn't know anything about. And I did start to believe, oh well, it is legacy. Nobody needs it anymore. So I started we needed, as part of my job, we needed someone to run pen testing on mainframes. We found that external suppliers, hardly anybody could do it for us. So I said, oh, how difficult could this possibly be? So I started researching that, realized it was a huge learning curve and everything is completely different and it looks weird. Um, but I've just got so managed to get information through YouTube videos and various other things. As I said, Soldier of Fortran, Philip Young, Chad Rickensrud, etc. And then realized that I really, really enjoy it. And once I started to understand mainframes, started to look into it, and they are absolutely vital. And they are, people really need to look at the importance of these. They're absolutely not legacy. They will run very powerful. They're very powerful systems, and they will run up to 800 million transactions a day. As you'll see when I've got a bit of a presentation. So when you see the presentation, I'll give you some statistics on how important mainframes actually are. But they're vital, and people don't look at them enough. That's why I'm drawn to them.
You actually answered the next question I wanted to ask. So I will ask instead a question from the chat. I was asked to say hi from Łukasz from Sopra and to ask you, did you write any books before that one?
No, yes, I did actually. 20 years ago, 2004 actually, I was sitting on the train and I thought to myself, well, I could, maybe read something or just play games or something, it wouldn't Snake or something like that at the time. And instead, what I thought I would do is write a novel. So I actually wrote a novel called Z4CK, and I self-published it. And it is really about something. It's about. I won't tell you what it's about, but it's a novel basically. So I wrote one, and then it did okay. And you could have found it on Amazon many years ago. And I decided to do a follow up on that. So I've actually written two books before, but they are novels, and they were self published as well. So prior to this time round, the reason that I decided to write a book on hacking mainframes is one, there is not one. And I also talked to some of the guys, and they are, although they've been on the go for 10 years and they've done this for 10 years, a book wasn't something they really wanted to do. They ran training courses. So I said, well, I really want to do this as a stretch goal. went to No Starch Press, and went to another publisher, and both of them came back, and I decided to go with No Starch Press. So that is going to be out mid next year. So yeah, it's going to be good. It's a lot of work, but it's good fun at the same time.
Exciting.
Yeah, it'll be
Uh,
good. It'll be good. You'll get your signed copy because you helped
oh,
me, didn't you, with some of the feedback. So that was really useful to me. So thanks
yay.
very much. Yeah,
Happy dance.
yeah, yeah.
So the next question from the chat is, how is the cybersecurity market in Scotland? How many job and opportunity? Yeah, that's the question.
Yes, it's quite good in Scotland actually. No matter what you do, the really good benefit now is the remote working that you can do. So it's not just Scotland that you have access to. You have access to everywhere in England as well, and there's a lot of companies in London. I'm based around Edinburgh. There's a lot of financial companies in Edinburgh, and there's a lot of pen testing companies as well. So there are jobs in Scotland and the UK in relation to pen testing. And because we work remote, as you'll know, Dorota, you're in Poland and you're working for an American company. So
Yeah,
all good.
yeah. Edinburgh is like such a beautiful city, so yeah, no wonder then like the businesses like there and like people are growing the
Yes.
businesses. So yeah,
Yeah. It's very historic. Yes, we've got a beautiful castle, and it's one of the nicest cities in Europe, as far as I'm concerned. I really like it.
yeah. I have the comment from the chat that I would stay in Scotland for the view. Yeah, I agree.
Yes,
I agree with that.
yes, definitely. We don't get, if we had brilliant weather, we would be a real tourist hotspot. I
But
mean, that's the only thing we don't have. We don't have brilliant weather all the time. It's
I think
changeable, but
I bet it's popular with Harry Potter fans that are just like yeah, used
yeah,
to the, like the rainy kind of atmosphere. Like it's a very
definitely,
mysterious
definitely.
city, so yeah, I think it's
Yes, and Outlander fans and any of these sort of people as well. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I'm
James
going to
Bond even.
yeah, actually yes. I'm going to get back to mainframe systems. So, what are some of the most common vulnerabilities you've encountered in mainframe systems? If you can share that.
Yeah, sure, of course. So the vulnerabilities, some of them are still the same sort of vulnerabilities that you get. You're still going to get issues with people connecting to say port 23 or and looking at unencrypted connections, these sort of things. But you also have slightly different vulnerabilities, and again, I'll talk about these in the presentation as well. So you still use on some systems, you'll still find legacy protocols such as FTP, Internet, and things like that. But it's not always like that. Some of these systems can be the most secure you've ever seen. But you have other things such as authorized libraries that can allow privilege escalation. You have also got batch jobs that have got what we call surrogate permissions, which allows people to potentially escalate the permissions. And also, you can have standard things like RACF misconfigurations. Again, I'm using lots of some of the terminology that even I didn't know 2 years ago, and I had to get my head around all these sort of things. So it all sounds a bit weird. So when I start talking about certain vulnerabilities, they generally won't mean anything to most pen testers. But there'll be there's some guys out there who are developing buffer overflows, etc., like Jake Lavelle, who's also good. Um, but again, some of the stuff is a bit strange and a bit different. But yes, same sort of vulnerabilities. At the end of the day, it is a computer system, right? In the
Yeah,
same sort of way as anything else, and it still has listening services that you connect to and potentially exploit.
yeah, that's a good answer. Thank you. And can you share a memorable or challenging ethical hacking experience involving a mainframe?
Probably the honestly the very first time I started looking at mainframes, um, which wasn't that long ago, you start to realize that you think that all it is a terminal, a green screen with a whole lot of um, just fields on a screen, right? So you think that's it. You log in, you connect to the system, there might be some files on it, etc. Mainframes are an entire ecosystem to themselves, right? So I think probably I'd spent quite a bit of time researching. I got into a meeting with some of the people who do what we call kicks, which is a kind of web application type thing for mainframes. But again, it's in the presentation, so I can explain that. And I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. And even though I'd done 30 years of um, or 28 years at that point of networking, security testing, etc., what they were talking was complete jargon to me, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So even asking them, how do I connect to this, was quite difficult. So I think that is probably, in terms of mainframe testing, been one of the sort of tricky ones. I mean, there's got other war stories in relation to standard pen testing, etc. But that is it. The whole point is you have no idea where you're going, even though you think you do. So it's quite entertaining. It's quite interesting. But
Like,
I think the issue was I got into a meeting with people and I had no idea what they were saying, and I had to be honest. I have no idea what you're saying.
yeah, I'm not sure why, but it kind of reminded me of how, like in the Lord of the Rings, how Frodo went to Mordor and like he didn't know what to expect. And what you just said, that Arno, that connected with me with that, with that book. But I have a question in the chat, but actually it connects to the next question I wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So I will maybe ask both. So my question was, what advice would you give to someone looking to specialize in mainframe security? And the question from the chat is, are they ever exposed to the internet? Hope you will tell us something about how to get started with mainframe hacking, and if there are any VMs or labs that we can use. But I'm sure Kevin will uh, say something about that in the presentation as well. But yeah, please, yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Definitely. So how do you get started in mainframe hacking? Okay, so what and there are yeah, I'm definitely going to show you some of the things in the presentation. I'm also going to give some information on the sort of stuff that you can download. Now, some of it is completely free, and some of it you can use 3-day trials in order to understand things. But what I would do, and this is something that I didn't really do, what I jumped straight into was watching YouTube videos on hacking, right? And the first few that I looked at, I had no idea what was going on. Okay, so having gone through all these sort of things, what I would say is there is a bunch of IBM Red books, about 8 or 9, which explain all the technology all the way through. And I would read them first. And then there is a whole bunch of YouTube videos by Soldier of Fortran, and there's a couple of links on awesome mainframe hacking, which, if you're already a pen tester, is very, very useful. But again, I mean, I think probably Dorota, we could probably put some links at the end of all this so people can look at that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
so that is what I would do. That's how I would get started. Definitely, what I always say with regards to my mentality in relation to getting breaking into pen testing is I would always look at how the server works, how the networking works, and um, then some of the vulnerabilities. Because as a pen tester, what you need to do is you need to be able to find the target, You need to understand how the target works and exploit the target and the server infrastructure. And then once you get onto that target, you need to know how to get around, right? So, in the same sort of way as the covert access training, you need to be able to find your target. You need to know how to get there, and you need to know how to look at the weaknesses in the target. But once you get inside, you need to be able to find the boardroom or wherever you want to go. It's
Server
the
room.
same sort of thing. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Server room, boardroom, any of these sort of things. It works the same way. So you need to understand each of these components. If you don't know any of these components, you'll get lost somewhere. But yeah, I think we'll put some links up. Yeah, on the sort of downloads, and then there's a ton of YouTube videos, right? Um, and some of these are very good, although you need to understand what they're talking about first, because it's a whole different language, which again I'll talk about in the presentation.
Okay, so next question. What's the biggest myth about mainframe security you that you'd like to debunk?
Um, Biggest myth is that mainframes are legacy systems, right? That are ancient and old. Now, for the presentation we've got, obviously I've weakened everything to make sure that we can break in. However, they are absolutely up to date. The Z16 mainframe can do 25 billion instructions per second, right? And they are huge systems. The software is absolutely up to date and everything gets patched. People think they're legacy and they're irrelevant. They absolutely are not. I think that's the biggest myth. People think, oh, you've got a mainframe, so you've got legacy kit. No,
Yeah.
we have got the best that you could possibly use for transaction processing.
Well, it probably depends from the company, right? But yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, I'll switch a topic a bit to a different side of view. So as a manager in cybersecurity, how do you align ethical hacking findings with a broader organizational goals? Yeah.
So it's it can be quite tricky sometimes. So, for example, um, you've got to understand what the mission of your company is, really, um, and you've got to be able to look at right um, the correct issues, right? So when you're doing pen testing, a lot of people we just do pen testing, and you get your pen test job that you're going to do. You do your pen test, and then you write your report and you hand it in. Okay. One of the things that's important for me is to make sure that in the report, especially if it's a red team reports can be very big and they can also be very technical. So you've got to make sure that one, the risk management is absolutely correct, and you are telling the right people the right risks as opposed to just what the vulnerabilities are. So that's where we kind of line pen testing with the sort of goals of the company. You've got to make sure that the company understand the risk of your findings in the pen test.
That's a very good
Hopefully that
answer.
answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, it's very good. Thank you.
I feel I'm
Um,
being interviewed here in a
uh,
real job interview type way. It's scary.
yeah, and it's live on internet, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
double scary, right? Okay, the
Don't
next.
say that. I totally forgotten about that.
Okay, we are in a private session here. No one sees us.
Good.
What? So next question: what's your approach to building and leading a cybersecurity team with diverse skill sets?
Okay. Right. So there's a few things. I really treat cybersecurity and cyber hacking teams in the same sort of way as I would treat a sports team. So I was the coach for the junior Scotland fencing team, and I ran a fencing club and things. So I treated very much like a sports team. So the most important thing when I'm building a team is to ensure we get people who, one, are interested, two, they want to learn, and you get a group of people who you think are all going to get on well with each other, right? So, and also we need to make sure we don't have anybody in the team who is, well, I'm better than you, I'm not going to help you with any of that sort of stuff. It's really important to have people who will help each other and work as a team, right? It's You will find people who are maybe brilliant in mobile app, but they are not so hot on infrastructure, and you will find people, a lot of people who do web application testing. So everybody will be different and better at different things and have different interests. So it's being able to cross skill across all the teams in order for everybody to improve, whilst you're going to have some people who are experts. So one of the things I've done in the current place that I work was create a skills matrix, and then have almost a buddy system where people will help each other, and you, whenever there's a chance for anybody to learn, I would try and put somebody together with someone who is maybe a senior and has more experience, so all of that training can happen. Everybody improves, everybody gets on, and everybody enjoys work, because you're there for a lot of time. If you don't enjoy it, then it's a problem. And I make mistakes and things like that. But you try your best to bring everybody in and keep everybody happy as much as possible.
But I wanted to share a comment that I think you are a good manager. So I think that's very important to work within the team when the manager is like nurturing and is trying to pull you up and not, I don't know, micromanage you or something. So I think you are the good manager. So I'm sure your team, yeah, feels good out there, and yeah, they work well together.
Yeah, I try my best, and I always enjoy teaching, and take that as an opportunity for everybody to learn. And I'm always learning all the time. I mean, I've only in the last 2 or 3 years started to learn mainframes, and as I write this book, for example, there's new stuff every single day that I'm going, oh, I didn't know that. So yeah, we're always learning all the time, and it's about trying to get on with people. As I said, I don't get it right all the time, but you do your best when you're mentoring.
Yeah, but I think it's super that you mentioned learning. That is very important, especially in cybersecurity, because we have new threats every day, and it's like very important to have this learning every day, like growth mindset coming into that industry, and not just like, I don't know, I passed OECP, or I'm a god, I will just sort of sit down and get my salaries. So yeah, I think it's super important what you just said, that you learn through all your life actually, and grow your skill set. And
Yes.
my next question is a bit connected to the previous one. Can you tell me what led you to become a coach and a fencing trainer, and what are the rules you follow while coaching a student of yours?
Okay. So I started fencing over 40 years ago as a 12-year-old. It's an unusual sport in Scotland. It's a much bigger sport in Poland. It's a very big sport in the USA now, and that's because the universities in America, the NCAA, they have teams. So if you want to get into university in America, put your put your kid in fencing and hope for the best that they do very well and they can get scholarship. Um, so I was a fencer, and I was very lucky. I had a sports coach who didn't charge any money for his coaching ever, and that's how I was kind of brought up. So when I retired from being a sort of competitive fencer properly, I liked teaching, and I wanted to be a PE teacher once upon a time. So being a sports coach was a natural thing for me. So I wanted to do that. It can be quite difficult because you're dealing with people who are 8-year-old or people who are 60-year-old or teenagers. So they all have mindsets that go like this every day. And so you've got to really work to motivate them. And that's the hardest part of it being a coach, is motivating people and understanding what their motivations are and getting the best from them. But I wanted to be a fencing coach because I wanted to do that for free because my coach did that for me, and I still enjoy it. And I've got a lot of experience, and I think I can give back to the community.
Yeah, I think like when you meet a person that just wants to pull you up and yeah, wants to teach you something and is a giver. So I'm a giver myself. So when I meet a person like that, I feel like really happy because yeah, most people I encounter are takers. So that's like I just wanted to say that's great. So my next question is that I wanted to ask during the presentation. So you can answer it now or just start the presentation if you want to.
Yeah.
Then my question is, what tools or methods are essential for hacking or securing mainframes? But you are free to start the presentation or yeah, whatever.
Okay, I'll do that, and then so I'll do the presentation. Feel free to butt in at any point because I'm going to treat it as I'm just running a workshop. So anybody who's got any questions in the chat, etc. Now this is going to be tip of the iceberg, okay? Because this is a huge subject. Much as I thought it wasn't a huge subject, I'm still learning 3 years later, and will be another 10 years probably. Okay, so I'll start the presentation. Some things I've already talked about, so we'll skip past those. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so I will start this.
Yeah.
So it's PowerPoint, I'm afraid.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm going to make myself smaller here in the corner. Hope.
Okay, window, entire. I'll go for an entire screen because I may wander in and out of these things. Right, Dorota, can you see my screen?
Yes, everyone can
No.
see.
Okay, so I'm going to go for this from the beginning. Okay, so I talk about hacking the mainframe, and I call that the crown jewels. I had something in there about Active Directory not being the crown jewels because actually there's a lot of money on the mainframe. So I'll just go through this. Okay. So first of all, what I'm going to be talking about, I'm talking about IBM, and we're talking about the Z series. Okay, so this is ZOS. There is IBM I series, and that is such as AS400 or the power systems. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the big beasts. Okay, um, they are, as I said, up to date. I'll talk about some of the security concepts and concerns, and I will also talk about the Hercules MVS emulator. So this is a free sort of mainframe that you can download and play about with. And originally, because I didn't have any access to a mainframe, this is what I used um, to learn about mainframes and sort of how they work. Okay. Okay, and obviously we're going to talk about breaking into them. Right, so list user, that is me. I've already talked about myself a little bit. As I said, busy writing a book on this subject at the minute. I'm a fencing coach, etc. Um, and I think I've covered all the rest of the stuff there. So let's go through this. So important thing, and I usually say this, I am a pen tester who is interested in mainframes. I am not a mainframer. Okay, as such, most when you go to some conferences, mainframe conferences, they are not pen testers in any way whatsoever. So when they're talking about security, they may be talking about RACF or other security like that. So it's a bit different. Okay, so I am a pen tester who is interested in mainframe security. Okay, okay, so we're gonna have a video here, right, and a little bit of hands-on demo if the demo gods are good to me. Okay, so no guarantee on that, unfortunately. Okay, so Dorota, I have some questions for you. Okay, so it's time to go back in to history. Now, IBM mainframes came out with the IBM 360 back in 1964, so that's 60 years ago. All right, and it really was developed for the Apollo missions to the moon. Right, that's one of the reasons they were developed. Now, I'm going to go back to 1970, which was the year I was born, and we have the IBM Model 370. So if you can see my screen there, I'm pointing at the mainframe. So this is the Model 370 from 50 years ago, okay? I don't know if you know what that is here.
A phone.
It is a telephone. Well done. You're old enough to know that is a telephone. Some people go, wow, it's got a cable coming out of the back of it. How weird is that? So, yes. So, as you can see, we've got the IBM Model 70, and this was 1970. So, let's talk about processor speed. Do you have any idea how fast this machine might have been? And feel free, anybody in the chat, to put this in if they've got any idea.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got some time.
Guys, go ahead. So I'm going to shoot a bit blank there that I'm going to say 20 megahertz. But if anyone
Uh-huh.
wants to guess, then go ahead.
I'll give it 5 seconds. Any other answers there?
No, no,
No,
not yet.
no. Okay, I'm going for it now. So 12 and a half megahertz. So you weren't too far off, Dorota. That was pretty good. Okay, so when we talk about memory on a mainframe, we actually talk about storage. And the reason why we talk about why IBM call memory storage is because they didn't want people to think that the mainframe would forget things. So they didn't want to use the word memory, so they used storage. So when we talk about storage, I'm actually talking about memory, right? So how much storage or memory do you think a mainframe would have had back then? And if you think about the amount of gigabytes that we use today, would have been kilobytes or megabytes.
So, it was less than a gigabyte?
Less than a gigabyte? Yes, 128K. So
Oh,
that's
wow.
100 up to 128 kilobytes, right? Okay, hard disk capacity. So when we talk about hard disks, we call them DASDs, right? Which is an array of oh, an array of disk. My brain's gone honestly at this time of night. Direct array of storage devices. That's what it is. So hard disk capacity. What was the maximum hard disk capacity? Do you think? If you think about today, in our PCs, we have maybe a terabyte or 500 gigabytes. What do you think the maximum hard disk capacity would have been on one of these machines?
Oh, wow. 10 megabytes from the chat.
10 megabytes. Maximum is 400 megabytes, but that is not bad, 10 megabytes, because you could get anything on these systems. There was a version that came out with 5 megabytes, and you had hard disk drives that were the size of a refrigerator that stored 6 megabytes. So if you think that is the size
Oh,
of an MP3, right? So yeah, 400 megabytes maximum though. And if you look at all the tape units in the background and all the other things that there would be, you're talking massive storage units just to get 400 megabytes. So the cost was $700,000 at the time. Now in 1970, that is the equivalent of 5.6 million now for one of these systems.
wow.
Right. So they were quite expensive. To give you an idea of how expensive that actually is, my parents bought a house in 1970, a flat in 1970, and the cost of that was $4,000. So that shows you how much one of these actually cost. Or you could rent one for $160,000 per month. Security, there was no security, absolutely no security whatsoever. Now, I bought my first PC in 1989, right? And it was 8 megahertz, 640K, and it had a 20 megabyte hard disk. So as you can see, 20 years later, it's pretty fast, the processor speed of 12.5 megahertz, because 20 years earlier, it was still faster than the PC that I bought for £700.
Yeah.
Right? So they were advanced at the time. They cost a lot of money, and now you just look at them and you go, oh, that's not much. Okay, so next, the latest is the IBM Z16. These are the most up-to-date systems that we've got, okay? So that came out in May 9th, 2022. The processor speed, it has parallel processors, and there are 200 of them, and they are all 500 gigahertz, and they're all working together. That is when you get the Uber fridge, right? On the chip, it also has artificial intelligence, an AI. The Telum chip has AI built into it, and that is designed for what we call inference testing. So, for example, when you use your credit card, a transaction will go through and it will instantly look at any transaction and check to see if it is dodgy. For example, if it is a transaction that is aligned with any patterns that it is seen from that credit card before. And you know how quickly a credit card can be processed. That is how fast these things can do that sort of stuff. Okay, how much memory do you think this machine has got these days?
Oh, like you mean like now?
Now,
Oh, maybe someone in the chat can help. I have no idea actually, but that's probably in terabytes, right? Or
yes,
no,
it's
no.
in it's in terabytes. If we think that a good PC
Yeah,
has 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes,
yeah. I'm going to shoot in the dark 100 terabytes. Yeah, I'm not sure, but
not bad. 40 terabytes.
40. Okay, that's
40
yeah.
terabytes. And the hard disk capacity is in petabytes, right? So I'm going to go, it's 500 petabytes, but really it's absolutely unlimited, right? So
Well, well,
500 petabytes is what? 500,000 terabytes? 5,000 terabytes? It's a bit more than that, I think.
um, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, you're getting into numbers where I'm starting to go, what number is that again? We've obviously got lots of cooling systems, etc. And if you wanted one of these in your house, you could actually buy one second hand off eBay. You get the 2014 model for about $3,000, but you are going to be paying a lot on electricity. Put it that way. So it will probably bankrupt you in electricity before they bankrupt you. But the cost now is less than it would have been 20, 50, 60, 50 years ago. It's just over $1 million for one of these, right?
Okay. Mm.
My first mainframe was Hercules MVS 370 emulated. So it is exactly the operating system from 50 years ago, right? That cost 5 million at the time, and you can put it on a Raspberry Pi. We'll look at it on a Docker system here, so I'll let you see all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and it runs up to 16 megabytes of RAM, and the MVS 370 could take up to 16 megabytes RAM, but no one could afford 16 megabytes of RAM at that point back in 1970, because it would have just been an astronomical amount of money and it was a huge amount of memory as well, or storage. Okay, so why a mainframe? Quite simple. I'm interested in they are doing transaction processing. People don't really think about it an awful lot these days. They think it's legacy, but every time you use your credit card, or every time you do a direct debit, or you get paid, or any time that you pay your rent or your mortgage or any of these sort of things, it is a transaction on a mainframe that is happening. There are more credit card transactions in a day going through mainframes than there are Google searches at this time. So it is still very relevant. Uptime is often measured in decades. I mean, we're talking about some of these systems have remained up and running for 30 years, and they run ZOS or ZOS or ZOS in American, and that the Z means zero downtime, right? And as I said, these things just keep running because, you if you imagine that these systems came down, suddenly your Visa transactions wouldn't work, your ATMs wouldn't work, your mortgages probably wouldn't get, your salary wouldn't get paid, etc. So that's why this is important to me. Um, they're very backward compatible. So any code that was written in 1964 will work on a modern mainframe. They're still working. They can use the same code. Now that can be a bit of a problem, but the code it runs lots of different programming languages, which we'll get into in a little minute. So it's used for financial services, obviously, telecoms for billing. I've already touched on things like paying your mortgage, credit card transactions, but also it's used for public data, such as healthcare, and some of the hospitals use it, and some of the insurance companies use it for medical insurance, etc., because it remains up and running and it has good governance surrounding it. So, and they're scalable. Databases, which are generally DB2 on the mainframe, are very scalable databases that can store massive amounts, and the retrieval of that data is almost instant. It's very, very good. So feel free to jump in with any question you've got, Dorota, at any point, remember.
Yeah, I just actually wanted to read the comment from the chat. Don't
Mhm.
forget the good O, Q, and X. It's a bit newer, but good of the OS, which you are not allowed to pentest according to the purchase agreement.
All right, okay. That
Yeah.
that 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 can be that would be a bit of a problem, but um, so one of the strange things I've had said to me is you can't break into a mainframe because IBM provide a warranty, and it's like just because you provide a warranty doesn't mean that it's not vulnerable to attack. You can conduct pen testing of mainframes as long as you own that mainframe, um, because you can't just do an audit. I mean, a lot of times if you do an audit, it's not the same as a pen test, right? And there are certainly internally, I've been doing penetration tests of the mainframe, and there are companies such as Vertali, NetSpy, Broadcom, Rocket Software, they all provide pen testing services of mainframe. And also, as part of red teaming, a lot of the time, it's not just Active Directory you're looking at. Sometimes you might pivot off to go and look at things on the mainframe. So I'm sure IBM aren't always keen on people doing the pen testing, but as a bank, for example, in my case, it needs to be done, and IBM do realise that. Right, so key terminology at the minute. ZOS is ZOS, that's a downtime operating system. And it was built on what they call MVS, which is multiple virtual storage. So that is really the operating system that is being used. TSO. TSO is time sharing options, and as we'll see, that is the equivalent of bash. So instead of a dollar prompt, you get a ready prompt, right? So once you've logged into a system, that's really pretty much what you'll get, and that is called TSO, and it comes from Once upon a time, you had computer systems and you just had one person connecting to the computer system. IBM and the OS 360 operating system was the first one to have multi-user operating systems, and it was a time-sharing option. So you paid for the little bit of time, processing time that you actually used, but everybody could do same things at the same time, so you could have multiple users, and that's where TSO comes from. But as I said, you get a ready prompt instead of a dollar prompt. RACF is the Resource Access Control Facility. RACF is the security manager for the mainframe. Up until 1978, there was no security on the mainframe. And eventually, somebody just decided, I'm fed up with people deleting my files. I'm going to create a security tool that stops them doing that. And RACF was almost born out of that. So now it does a lot more than just protect logins. It looks after passwords. It looks after encryption. It looks after a whole lot of processes and the data that is actually on the system as well. Okay, so this is another question. This is one thing that it was really quite behind on. Okay, so the database, the RACF database, and the encryption of the RACF database and all the passwords that are on there moved from DES or triple DES to AES. What year do you think it moved in? Considering that on Linux, you've probably had that since 2001, 2002. When do you think we shifted from DES to AES encryption of passwords?
Mm,
Answer in the
yeah.
chat.
Oh,
See what you think, Dorota. What do you think?
yeah. No one. And yeah, I'm not sure why, but I think 1995. But yeah, I don't know the answer, so I'm just shooting
That's
there.
okay. So it is behind in terms of encryption levels and things like that. So it was not until 2016 that they
Oh,
actually update that.
and in the chat, I see 2020 now. So yeah, I was way
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. So 2020 was reasonably close, but 2016. Now that doesn't mean that everybody has upgraded the systems because, as I said, um, some people just can't afford to have any downtime, and they don't take any downtime. So how do you update your RACF system when you can't entirely have all the downtime that you need? Okay, so another thing that's key terminology, KICS, Customer Information Control System. So the Customer Information Control System is really your green screen um, web browser. Okay, so instead of using a web browser, you can connect directly connects through what we call ZOS Connect, and that gives you APIs that you can connect to, etc. So the mainframe allows you to do all that sort of stuff. Um, but the original green screen was called Kicks, and this is where you would do your data input, for example. And we're going to see an example of Kicks and a vulnerable Kicks application that has been created by Soldier Fortran, Philip Young, and it's very good for training purposes, etc. Okay, so that's what Customer Information Control System is, and that came out in 1969. Okay, so if you wanted to log into something and do data input, etc., you would probably be connecting to Kix. And at the end of the day, you're probably still connecting to Kix. If you're using any mobile applications or banking applications that use mobile apps, they will go to an API, and that API will probably then direct back to Kix and DB2 at the back end. Okay, so as I said, storage is confusingly memory. DASDs is direct access storage device, so they call that DASD as opposed to just a hard drive. We don't boot a mainframe, we IPL a mainframe, which means initial program load. Okay, so you IPL it at a certain part of the hard drive, or sorry, DASD. It reads all the files in and execute those files in order to boot up a mainframe. And to boot up a mainframe is probably 15 to 30 minutes to do that on a big industrial mainframe. Databases, data sets. Okay, so data sets, we don't call them files, we call them data sets. And there's two different types of data sets, really. Well, there's three now, but we'll keep it simple and we'll call it two. We've got physical sequential, which is just a file, really. So a PS data set. And that is just something, it's honestly just a file. And again, I'll show you that. Directories are called PDS, which is a partitioned data set. And the partitioned data set holds members, and those members are all cataloged. So you don't have a hierarchical structure in the same way as you have on Windows or Linux. It's all flat files, but they have high-level qualifiers. And again, I'll show you a little bit of that later on. But they're all called data sets. So, but really, some of them are files, some of them are directories. But anything that is a PDS or a directory, it will hold members, because you don't have files within the directory, you have members within the directory, and they all get catalogued. Another thing we've got is the Interactive System Productivity Facility. IBM back in the day were absolutely terrible at writing acronyms that anybody could remember. I constantly forget, so I say something's ISPF. At the end of the day, it is the menu system, right? They call it the GUI, but it is really more of a text user interface. So that is what ISPF is, and again, we'll have a quick look at that. Okay, so root, we don't have root, we have special. All right. So basically, special is the if you have special access on the system, you have access to everything, or you have access to give yourself access to everything. So you are God of the system. Okay, and that is special. And a terminal. Terminal is really an endpoint, usually TN3270. This is what a terminal used to look like, with an IBM, what we call IBM Model M keyboard, and I'm lucky enough to have one of those. Very clicky keys. It is my pride and joy. These days, you don't need a TN3270 terminal that is connected over coax cable. You can use, they have terminal emulation systems such as X3270 and C3270. And again, I'll show you those. Now, one question I get asked is, why is it that they have mainframe ecosystem has different terminology? Well, to be honest, they were there first, right? DASD was invented really pretty much in 1964, as along with the use of storage and all these sort of things. So there's no reason for them to change it. Actually, everybody else are the ones who use files and folders and memory and things like that. So they came after mainframes and mainframe terminology. Okay. Okay. Some languages. I'll just do this quickly. Once upon a time, you had job cards. So you would have something like a hopper, and these were all paper punch cards, and you would feed the punch cards in, and you would fire those punch cards through. They would get processed by the computer system, and that is basically how you program things. So you can still see these things online. There's some YouTube videos of that sort of thing going on, and that was job control language. So job control language, it was invented pretty much in 1964, and the person who ran the project said JCL, or job control language, is the worst programming language that has been ever invented anywhere, and that was his statement. It is quite difficult to use, and quite doesn't make an awful lot of sense, but makes sense on mainframe stuff. So trying to get your head around it in comparison to Python or any of these sort of things is a lot more different. But it is basically how you submit batch jobs on a mainframe and make things run. Okay, we still use COBOL. Still use COBOL a lot. It is especially in financial services. So some people ask me, isn't COBOL dead now? It's like, no, very much it isn't. A lot of the old batch jobs that have run since 1992 excuse me, still run on COBOL, and COBOL is still programmed today on the mainframe. You can now use Python, you can use Java, and you can obviously use any the other modern languages as well, but there might be COBOL at the back end of it. Assembler, obviously, I don't know much about that. Again, that makes even less sense to me than JCL does. And there's also Rex, which is pretty good. Um, Again, brilliant thing is ChatGPT. You can just ask it, please write me a Rex script that will do X, and ChatGPT will go and do that. It will also do it for job control language, and it will also create you Kix applications or any of these sort of things. So you don't necessarily need to know how to do that. You just need to be careful that obviously if you're using ChatGPT, that you have oversight of the code that you're creating, and that you make sure there's no vulnerabilities in the code. But you can get other processors to run through checking for vulnerabilities, so it's all good. And as I said, most others will all run the mainframe. Python and other things will also run the mainframe as well. So some of the security issues, some are out there on the internet. Um, So that is obviously a bit of an issue. And as part of my book, I'm working on the next chapter, which is currently chapter 7. So there's a lot of OSINT in there. And in that, I really talk a lot about Shodan and some of the Shodan requests that you can make in order to try and find mainframes on the internet. There are still mainframes on the internet, quite surprisingly, and they are sitting on port 23, right? Um, so that sort of thing is there. I might demonstrate that through Shodan later on if anybody wants to see that specifically. So that is a vulnerability. You don't want that hanging out in the internet. Application code can be old, so there can be application code that's been written back in 1970 or right up to 1990s, and this was obviously written before anybody thought much about, securing code. Um, so it can have some various vulnerabilities in it that is still sitting there on the mainframe. Man-in-the-middle attacks against Telnet and FTP. So obviously things like Ettercap, Bettercap, any of these sort of tools will still work against this. There is a slight twist in this. Instead of using ASCII for commands, and again, I'll show you this. They use EBCDIC, right? So EBCDIC is really configured slightly differently. So if you look at some code, it may not make any sense unless you use Wireshark to decode it in a certain way. And again, I've got more information on that just coming up. The RACF DB can have weak passwords. So not only can it be DES, the other issue can be that you can only have up to 8 characters, and they can be A to Z or 0 to 9 as part of the default installation, right? Obviously, you can install multi-factor authentication, or you can have one-time passwords or any of these other sort of things. But by default, your RACF is 8 characters long. And also, it's not just 8 characters long, but it is all uppercase. So even if you put in by default uppercase, lowercase, it will be converted to uppercase. And I will definitely show you the weakness in DES in a little while. So security issues are rarely mentioned by IBM. IBM don't really want people to think there are any vulnerabilities in RACF. So hence the name of my book coming up, Hacking Mainframes, Dispelling the Myth of the Impenetrable Fortress, because they're not impenetrable. IBM don't want anybody to know that there are vulnerabilities there or other things can be exploited. They're not too bad at doing it. Telling people these days because they've been forced into it, but they're not keen. They're not keen. So that is actually an issue, right? Because it means that you can't do proper research on these sort of things and do proper testing on them. Default credentials such as IBM user has a vulnerability. IBM user default credentials is sys1, SYS1. Usually that gets changed, obviously, but if it's not changed, then you've got a problem there, because IBM user has special access, so it would have access to everything. If you don't change the default password, IBM user sys1, and you have complete access to the system. Okay. Okay, APF libraries. This is one of the things I was talking about. So APF libraries on a system are pretty much the system libraries. Okay, so these are the libraries, or these are the data sets or the files, right? To use standard sort of non-mainframe language, that have access to the entire system. If you can add your code to the APF library, and these libraries that have full access and are system libraries, you will be able to escalate your privileges and potentially run code that you want in order to be able to become whoever you want to be. Okay, it's quite complicated, and it's something, if you want to look into it, there are documents on what an APF library is and how they work. But think about system libraries that you can attach your code to potentially in order to escalate your privileges. So batch tasks with excessive access. So as you saw there was job control language. As part of that, sometimes you won't have enough access to be able to run the job yourself. So you have what you call a surrogate, right? So they are basically batch jobs that have full access to the system, that are able to run code for you or run those jobs. If you can change those jobs, or you can find out the user IDs and passwords that are in that job control language, potentially, again, you can run jobs or change jobs that allow you to take full control of the system. So that is what surrogate authority is. It is you don't have enough access, but the job does. But if you can get access to the job control language code, potentially you can see how to change any code for yourself, or you can actually run code that you can change and get access to the system. Okay, difficult. It was difficult researching, but there are now options. This is one of the reasons I decided to actually write the book, because there's nothing in one place. It's everywhere. It's all over the place, and trying to figure out where to start was difficult for me and can be difficult. Okay, I'm just going to run a quick let me see, demo video that I've got here. It's okay. And I'm happy to answer any questions going forward or on this. Okay, so just give me 2 seconds. So here's a little demo video I have got to let you understand what a mainframe is. Hopefully, Dorota, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, so as I said, we can connect on port 23, or you can connect on port 3270. I will just pause this as I go if I need to. And as you can see, well, I've just done a simple nmap scan of a mainframe there, and it said here's some of the ports that are open. So still 2121, which is FTP, 3270, which is the one that we're really interested in. So I've done another nmap. As I said, it's on my system here, but I've just done a service scan across some of these services, and we can see that this is IBM Telnet TN3270. All right, so we're gonna connect to that system, and we can connect with X3270. So this is the client we use here. So if I just go back to this, I can show you a few different things. Okay, so I have a local host here. So we have two different clients. One is X3270, right? And if I go to 127.0.0.1 and on port 3270, this gives you the client, which connects us to the mainframe. Now, this is the Hercules mainframe, right? So this is just a Docker system. This is completely free. You can download it. You can do whatever you want to it. And quite simply, we would log in, and I would log in with sys1, unless I've changed my password, which I have. And you come to what we call TSO. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the video because there's a few things in here. But any questions about anything you want to see, I can add extra stuff into the just
Great.
any live demo. Okay. Okay. So I'll just carry on. Okay. As I've said, IBM user, and in general, as soon as you get this download, it'll be sys1. As you can see, it's a ready prompt there instead of the dollar prompt. And as you can see, when I do listcat, the equivalent of ls, okay? And that brings back the files that I own, right? I run, okay? Next thing I can do is type list user. Now on an actual mainframe, you don't need to type rx list user. This is a rec script that's been created separately. So you would just type list user and it would come back and it would tell you your user credentials. Okay, so here, IBM user, groups admin and RACF admin. What you would see on an actual mainframe is special or operations. All right, so attributes, operations, and specials. You can see there. Tell me if I'm going too fast or going too slow.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Next thing that is important here is where to go? I am here. So next thing that is important is the rvary command. Okay, so there's a few things you want to know. First of all, when you log into a Linux system, for example, you probably log in, do pwd to find out which directory you're in, right? So basically, listcat does the same sort of thing. It is that. Next thing you want to do is who am I or ID, etc. Right? And list user is that equivalent. Okay. Next thing I want to do is find out where my RACF database is. Right? So I can type rx rvary, which will tell me where my RACF database is. Now, in this case, so pre-version of RACF, so it's based on 2 files, right? But it'll basically tell you all those sort of things. Okay, but all right. So as a hacker, I want to know where am I, who am I, and where is the thing that I want to download and just basically break into and hack. All right. So there's a few other things we can do on here, just as a wander around the actual interface. So I'll leave the video to run on that and explain things as I go. Okay, next thing we can do is a top of the range editor, which allows you to just edit files. And it's a very simple sort of thing. Usually you would do all your editing in ISPF in the browser there, in the in the GUI there, or the actual menu system. Right, so we've created a file. This is a text file called kevin2.txt. Right, and there is kevin2.txt. There we can go into ISPF, and this is the ISPF menu. We call these panels, okay, and I can look at files in here, for example. So options 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if I pause that just now, I can explain this a bit better. So if I type ISPF, yeah, it's going to be annoying. I can see it. In here we have lots of utilities and menu systems, etc. Okay, so if I type 3, it will bring me to another menu. Okay, in which case we can We've got things like where we can create data sets, we can move and copy files about, we can list all the utilities. Okay, so this is 4, right? But it's a bit annoying having to go through all these sort of things. So on here, you can actually just go back to start. I'll go back to the start menu. I can jump back to the start menu and I can just type 3.4 as long as you won't know what the menu number is, and it will take you to the menu number there. Okay, and this is really how you browse files. I can edit a file or view a file. Yeah, I should be able to view this one. And as you can see, this is the free version. And within the free version, it just has a text file with user IDs and passwords, right? Now, RackF isn't like that. The full version on an actual mainframe isn't like that, but this is just to kind of show you what it's going to look like if you download this Docker container or other script, which I can show you how to. So let's get back. Let's go back to the video. Here's some JCL in a JCL library. So we have libraries, and this is how we go through things. We can go to option 3.4. You can look at the files, and if you want to view a file, you can type V to view the file. And here's all the different things that you can do. So you're probably looking at this and going, wow, that looks absolutely ancient. And the most up-to-date one also looks like this. And you think to yourself, well, you know, there are GUI interfaces for this, or web interfaces that you can connect to. But if you're thinking about it, if you think about what this system is designed to do, it's designed for batch processing and transaction processing. So why would we add something really like a huge GUI in order to that would slow the system down? So this is, as far as I'm concerned, very efficient, and people know how to use it. So I can send things. I can send hello to whoever I want. I can send menus across, sort of little text messages to anybody on the system. And again, this has been on the go for a long time. We can add users to the system. So instead of add user on Linux, we're still adding user. It's just add users slightly different. Okay. So we just add user Kevin02. Name is Kevin2, for example, and then we'll put our password in. We'll add ourselves to the default group first, which could be users or IBM user or whatever your default group is, or the user itself. And then, excuse me, password could be, you know, password or anything you want. Let's just go for something very, very poor. There you are. I don't recommend 1, 2, 3, 4 as a password. It's kind of rubbish. Okay, so that's just adding users there. Yeah, a couple of other things. We have kicks. So your DVCA system that you can download as a Docker container just runs a free version of kicks. And this is what, for example, an application in kicks would look like. Right. I'll just go back there. I'll just go back a little bit just to show you. And this application is called Milne's Cargo, and we will be hacking it later on. It's part of the Damn Vulnerable Kicks application tool. Okay, I'll log off there and probably just log off as I go. Okay, and that's that bit done. So back to the mainframe. From I'll just make sure I'm in the right place because I always get lost. Okay, pen test tools. So Nmap, and specifically mainframe scripts. And again, we're gonna demonstrate some of these sort of things. Again, Soldier, Fortran, and Big Indian Smalls, Philip, and Chad have written NSE scripts specifically for the mainframe in order to enumerate users, right? So TSO enum, VTAM enum, and some of the kicks info, etc. Other than that, you're still using Nmap as you normally would. John the Ripper has a tool that can decrypt things like RACF databases. John the Ripper is the only one that can do it at the minute. Hashcat can't do it. But you can convert it and then decrypt the database if you can get RACF database off. Hydra, I use for brute forcing. Obviously, you can use Potato and things like that as well. Wireshark, I use that for packet capture, and I'll demonstrate that just in a little minute. Ettercap, I use that for man-in-the-middle attacks. And obviously, we've got BetterCap, you've got ARP Spoof, you've got other things as well. I like Ettercap because it's got a nice GUI. We need some clients such as X3270 or C3270. Metasploit, there's only a few payloads for Metasploit, like 5 or 6. Okay, there is not an awful lot for this, but luckily some other tools for exploitation have been created. Various standard clients are obviously important, such as FTP and Telnet, to try and make connections to the system. And there's a few new tools such as Hack3270. So if you think about Hack3270, that is almost like Burp or Zap for Kix applications. So again, where do you find all these sort of things? They're all on GitHub, but if you don't know what you're looking for, it can take a little bit of time. Okay, so we do need to use scripting languages such as JCL or Rex or Python, and in fact, we'll be running a tool called Tshocker, which runs a Python that runs JCL, that then runs Rex, all wrapped up in one tool that allows you remote access. So, man in the middle. Any questions? And feel free to butt in, obviously. Man in the middle attacks. Okay, so I'm doing the man in the middle attack. You can run T-Shark or Wireshark or any of these sort of things. So I would be running something like T-Shark -F, looking at port 23, and then capturing as a PCAP file. All right. Then go for the login, right? And try and capture that person's login, especially if it's over Telnet or FTP. They're unencrypted protocols, so you can steal the information there. But what you notice about this is a stream that we captured on Wireshark. You can't see anything because it is encoded in EBCDIC. It is not encoded in ASCII, right? But luckily, Wireshark has EBCDIC encoding. So if we click on that, we can then look at the information here that we're getting back. And we've got TSO. This is the TSO login part, Bob31, who is the person who's logged in. And if we look further down here, 4321 is the actual password. an.aj is something that you'd be looking for, and you'd find that part. But 4321, it's a very weak password, is the password. So it does decrypt it. And then after that, you've got hello, basically, TSO is the default name, you may change it, etc., etc. Right. Okay, so now that we've done that sort of stuff, let's have a look at cracking the RACF database, downloading it and cracking it, etc. Okay, so there's a few ways we can do this, but I'm going to go with video at the minute because it's proven. I've shown this a couple of times before. So one of the things that is important to note is by default, you can't just download the RACF database, even if, so let's have a look here. I am going to go C3270. I'm going to go in my Kali box because I know I have got C3270 BMF LTSO. And this is Vertali, are a company who very kindly given me a mainframe because I'm, because they're keen to help out in any way they can in order for me to write the book, etc. And again, that's Mark Wilson. He's an absolute top mainframe hacker. He's been doing mainframes for 40 years, and he is well known as one of the best guys that there is out there, especially in the UK. And he's been very kind enough to say, yep, we'll give you a loan on mainframe. So thanks to Bertali for that. If I log in here, so this looks pretty much the same. This is the latest version of Source 3.1. If I say I don't need to do RX because RVary is there. As you can see, this is the proper RACF database. Right, so sys1 RACF DS. Sys1 is really what we would call the volume where a lot of the system files are held, and RACF is one of them. So when we type rvary, we're seeing where we are. Now, by default, generally, you can't just download the RACF database, even if you're an IBM user, okay? So there's two ways to do it. If you've got access to DS copy, you can DS copy it to a data set that you have access to, or you can run some JCL code, job control language code, to do a batch job that will copy it. So that's what the video is about to show us here. Okay, so we've got a copy RACF job. It is going to replace, it's going to copy the RACF database from sys1.racfds to where we have actual access to. So let's carry on with that. So it submits a job. So let's see where we've actually copied this to. It's been a while since I've run this one. Hopefully you can see this. The screen is quite small, I'm afraid. So I'll just explain what's happening. So we're going to update this batch job, and as you can see, as part of that, it's copy.racfdb, and we're going to change it to an actual file that we've got access to. And we'll just come back out of there and log off. Have I missed something? I'm thinking I might have missed. Yeah, I have. Give me 2 seconds. I think I've missed a video somewhere. Tracking RACFDB brute force enum log on. Give me 2 seconds.
No worries.
Da, 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 da. Yes, I stopped halfway through. That's the problem. Okay, so there we are. So we're here. So what we're doing is here we are editing the job control language, and we are gonna get actually just copy the RACF database to somewhere that we've got access to. Right. I knew there was something missing here. I'm going, that doesn't make any sense. All right. So the input file is RACF, in this case N11A, so it could be racfds.back or whatever you want. And the output file or dataset is going to be ttoi.copy of RACF. Right, so we're copying it to somewhere that we do have access to, and then what we'll do after that is we'll use FTP and log in and download it. And then look to crack it. Cracking RACFDB. Okay, so we submit that job, and that should copy the database. So we'll get back out of the client. And that's it. So we've got copy of.racf.db, so we've got access to that. Now, one of the other things that I want to stop that there. So one of the things that seems to be uh, missed out is how we actually got to there. So I'll do that, and then we'll get to that bit in a minute. Okay, so basically, if I stop this for a split second, remember how I was telling you about we have TSO, TSO enum, etc. Right. So what we have is we initially did an Nmap scan of our system. We then found that TN3270 or 3270 IBM 3270 existed. So we wanted to try and enumerate user IDs and passwords. Now, on the latest systems, there is something that sort of blocks this. On some that you need to implement it, and some of the older systems they don't have the blocking. So basically, when you try and log in, it will come back with something like let me see. So if I can press enter there and log off. We'll see 270 ENF 23 TSO. It asks you to enter user ID and password. Okay. So if I put the wrong user ID in, on this system, what it does is it brings you to the screen anyway, because this is one of the Vertali systems, so it's set up to just go, oh, okay, that's not a correct user ID. It doesn't exist, but I'm going to pass you through to the proper login screen and see what you do with this. And you can change your parameters here. On an older system, what it would do is come back and say, oh, user doesn't exist. All right. And that's how we do the enumeration. It either says passes you through because the user exists. And in a very simple way, it's the same sort of thing as you would do in the enumeration on a Windows or a web application as well. So that's what this is doing here, right? So we run the TSO enum script and we punch, put a lot of users in, and it will come back with valid users. So in this case, it's come back with user ID, Milne Kev, H Hub JA, admin 12, and user 123 are valid users. And all the other users are not valid users. Okay, so it knows what it's actually looking for. So that's the first part. Based on that, because we have FTP, rather than trying to exploit TN3270, you've got two options. One is we can use Hydra to try and brute force the password of, for example, admin12. Now, it's very weak, right? And this is what we've done here by just typing in Hydra FTP 10.221.192.120 minus L, and admin is the user, and minus P pass um, with minus T at the end. So we're looking at that password list. So it will throw through the password list, and it's found admin 12, and the password was 0012. As I said, really weak. It's not standard for mainframes. Anything up to 8 characters, right? But if you're using rocku.txt, it will be really useful for you, and it will be that'll be good. Okay, so we've managed to find out admin 12 and 0012 are user ID and password that will allow us to get in. Okay, so that's where we are right now. Okay, so if I continue with this, what we're going to do is we're going to go FTP 10.221, and then we're going to log in with admin 12 and 0012. Okay, so as you can see, we've logged into the system. Now, one of the things that we're doing here is actually just copying rackf.db because we've got access to it, and it's quite a big file. One of the interesting things about FTP on mainframes is it's not just your standard FTP. You can actually submit jobs, right? So in the FTP client on the mainframe, you can type site equals Jez, and that will change you to a different type of access to the system, which will allow you to actually submit any job control language jobs remotely. Now, that obviously can be a bit of an issue, and we'll see why that is soon enough. But also, you can add SQL code in as well. So you can type site equals SQL, and you can you can actually input SQL queries to the FTP server that will talk to the DB2 database, right? So FTP on a mainframe is far more powerful and allows you to submit jobs or submit SQL. Let's just continue with this. So we're just downloading this just now, and then we're going to exit from that very quickly, and then we will crack this file. Okay, so we've got a copy of rackf.db. Now, straight off top, we can't just crack it because it's a binary file. So what we have to do is we have to use John the Ripper and convert it using rackf to John, right? And we can convert it, and the output is rackf to crack. And we're going to crack a few of the users here. So we're going to use John, rackf to crack, and then use the word list. That could be just the password list that you've got that you think is important, or you could use RockU, or you can use any of these other sort of things. Okay, and we're going to try and crack the password for all these other users as well. Now, the passwords have been deliberately made to be very weak. This is a rack. This system was KDF AES, so that is AES, right? The version of AES that is used these days by IBM is called KDF AES, but it is AES 256, and it is a lot more secure than just DES. So as you can see, even using the password list, pass, and having 4-character passwords, it still took a while to even get that out.
I have a question in the chat. Is that a good moment?
Yes, absolutely.
Is there a length limit for the password size in the mainframe?
Yes, by default, 8 characters, uppercase.
Okay, thank you.
But you can also use multi-factor authentication, and you can also use one-time passwords, and you can use passphrases, but a lot of the time they are not implemented. All right. It's quite funny if you know anything about decrypting passwords, the LAN manager hash passwords, which are 14 characters, all uppercase, and you can break them in 2 seconds. LAN manager is derived, Windows LAN manager hashes are derived from the mainframe hashes. These are the same, but only 8 characters instead of 14 characters. So that's where Microsoft just stole that, basically, the LAN manager hashes, because this was IBM LAN manager, and are now using that. So yeah, absolutely. So let's continue with that just now. And then we can use our client X3270 client, which is what we use to connect, to log in with admin 12. Oh, he's going to log in with Hubert. Hubert's going to log in with Hubjar. So Hubert, one of the guys I work with, he's also in the Mainframe Hacker Society. He's very, very good as well. So he's going to log in there, and we will go to the final demo that I have, and then I can do any sort of manual stuff that you want to do. So we're going to do that again. He's going to enter his password. And do some stuff. Okay, so we've got to the ready prompt, so he's managed to log in. So really, really simple stuff, right? Really simple stuff. So basically, finding out what the user ID and what users there are using Nmap, using TSO enumeration, then using Hydra to FTP brute force it. Now, one of the things that's almost obviously you've got to be careful of is not locking people out of the system. So on our very weak system, we don't have any intruder lockout, right? So what if you were doing Hydra or you were checking these, I would probably find out, first of all, if you're doing an actual scoped pen test, I would find out, first of all, what the password lockout is, whether it's 3 or 5, and then just do a huge user list with 3 passwords or 4 passwords that you want to check are not in the system. So you're really password spraying as opposed to password brute forcing, right? Because there is a risk you will lock people out of the system. Okay, one of the other things that we have on the mainframe, when if I connect back in, so I can connect C3270 and I can probably connect to my other one, 192.168.168. I have a few mainframes knocking about. 3270, yeah, LTSO, and I am going to go IBM user. One of the things we do have is OMVS, which is Unix on the mainframe. Okay, OMVS is the command that you use in order to get into the Unix subsystem, right? Which is called USS, Unix, yeah, basically Unix System Services. And this came in about 1992. A lot of mainframers don't actually use it, but it is a godsend for Linux guys and people or girls or who are hackers, because often, this is where you can actually use Netcat, set up shells, do other things. And what's even better, which is something we'll see in the video, is you can run things like commands that are actually TSO commands or Linux commands, and you can have access to both of the operating systems. So let's have a look at that in here, because I know that my system here doesn't have the TSO CMD. So as you can see, you can just run who am I, PWD, all the usual sort of stuff, ID, etc., etc. And you name, which is OS390, is what it comes back as the operating system. Okay, so we go back into ISPF and we can run TSO commands. And what we're going to do here is upload a shell to the system and then allow that system to have access to that system through an extra port. And I'll show you another tool that is a bit better than doing this. This is how it works in Rex. That shows you what you can do. You can set up a listener. So we are using the file transfer utility, and we're going to send the file Rex shell from our system up to the mainframe. And then we're going to execute it. We're going to run it. So we execute by typing exec ttoi.bind.shell, which was the name of the file. Right, all goes in quotes, and then we're going to sit and listen on port 39999. Okay, and then from our system, we can use Netcat to just log in on that port automatically. And there you have it. So yeah, you can do who am I and all the rest of that good stuff. Right. So basically, at that point, you have extremely good access to the system and you've set up a listener. Now, let's see if I have got a slightly more advanced version of that. So a couple of things that people were interested in. How can we find mainframes? So when I show you this, please understand that I'm using Shodan. I'm using Shodan from the command line. This is for demonstration purposes only, and you can see that there are mainframes hanging out there, but this is not for someone to try and log in or hack a mainframe or any of these sort of things. So on to the next bit. Any questions on that or anything anybody really wants to see? I can show you one other thing I think might be useful.
Oh, no requests. I asked the chat, but that you just showed how to find that was useful. So thank you for that.
Everybody's probably asleep by now.
No,
So
no, still some people here.
good. So basically what I'll do is I'll go through the rest of the presentation from the current slide, and I will talk about kicks now. Okay.
Okay, okay.
So we're only talking about kicks via the mainframe. As I've already said, you can connect through kicks via APIs, web front ends, and there's various other ways you can do it now. And it's for servicing applications online. The web browser is your TN3270 terminal. Languages you can use are COBOL, Java, C++. A lot of these things, just like a web front end, can be written in all of these languages. And one of the important things to know is it works by sending each screen after an update. Now, this was so things were important. So things were efficient. The problem with that is you can update anything on your screen and change it if you have a proxy in the same sort of way as you could change things potentially in Burp or Zap, and then send everything at once. Okay. Now, the way the security works is you have certain fields. So, for example, you have a protected field. So this account number, for example, is an unprotected field. You'd be able to type 12345 into this. That would go back to the database, which is a protected field, which means you can't type over it. Okay, because it is in the protocol, it is seen as protected, and that will grab the information back to the database. Okay, and then you have some other fields as well, which are, for example, could be allow update, which is a hidden field, which is really just blacked out in the background. Okay,
Oh,
that is how the security worked. But that is fine when you were a terminal connected to a coax cable straight into a mainframe once upon a time. Now, because we have proxies, someone can play with that, especially if you can stop and start the service, okay, or stop and start the packets as they go backwards and forwards. So this is something that we're going to have a look at. Okay, so we've got the Dan Vulnerable Kicks app, and we're going to use some open source version of Kicks called Kicks that I showed you earlier on. This runs on Hercules MVS 3.8G and ZOS, and we'll use a new tool called Hack3270, which is a Kicks application version that's used for Burp, or it's like Burp or Zap. So let's run the demo. Okay, maybe we're not running that demo then. Maybe I'll just run the demo myself. Okay, so I'll run this demo myself anyway. So I have here, I think it's on here. Good. I have my my system, and the system is nmap. I will just check that I do have 127.0.0.1, and now 3270 is an unusual sort of port, so by default you don't always see it, so I will always put in a minus p minus. As you can see, they've all come up now, so that is good. And in here I have my mainframe, all my mainframe tools. So MF course. So I will go into mainframe, and hopefully it is there. Is it? Where am I? Oh yeah, okay. Front directory, yes, I'm already there. Okay, so ls up there, C hack 3270, is that right? Yeah, and of course, CD hack 3270. Now, uh, as I said, I had this video already there, so I'm doing this demo live. So if it all goes completely wrong,
Mm.
I do apologize.
Fingers
Okay,
crossed.
oh yeah, absolutely. Always fingers crossed when you're doing a live demo. Okay, so we have a tool called Hack 3270. And what I'm going to do is I have a mainframe on my system, the Docker mainframe, that is running the damn vulnerable kicks app, right? So it's in the same way as you've got DVWA, you've got DVCA that's been created, and this sits on a mainframe. You can download it and you can connect it. Now I've got it sitting listening on my system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up Hack 3270 as a proxy server, right? And press return on that. And basically it's saying, instead of me connecting to 3270, I'm going to connect to 3271, and the tool, Hack 3270, will proxy everything in the same way as going through Burp Suite or Zap would do this. Got that? So let's do that. So I need to start up my client, and I'll start my client here, X3270. And I'm going to connect to 3271 and hope for the best that it works. Great, excellent. So far, so good. It's saying, oh, I've received a connection here, so click to continue. And I can now click. Now, one of the really, really good things about this tool is it can strip out all the hidden fields and protected fields, etc. when I switch this on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log in with DVCA, which is the user ID that starts up the web server, basically the Kick server, web server, and starts the very vulnerable application. DVCA, and it will start an executable script that starts this up. So great. So we're sitting at DVCA, and this is a production region. So you can see this as like a virtual machine. Okay, cross between a virtual machine and a web server. Now, to get through this, I need to go clear, and then I need to start MCGM, Mel's Cargo Good Morning, which starts it there. Okay, so here's Milne's Cargo. I'm going to use F5 to move forward. So imagine that this is just a very, very basic Kicks application. Okay, so we've got office supplies, price list. I can have a look at any of these sort of things. There's a few things here, such as printer paper. What else do we have on there? I'll just make sure I hit the right keys. Three-hole punch. We've got Dom Perignon at $84,000 to buy, which is fine, but I don't really want to buy that at $84,000. 24-karat gold MacBook Pro. I wouldn't want to buy a MacBook Pro anyway. Never mind a 24-karat gold one. So it's over budget. I'm not allowed to buy it anyway. All right. So place an order. Let's see if I can place an order anyway. Actually, I'll place an order for the last one. F7. Can I buy this? Press.
Yeah, let's buy now.
Denied. It knows I'm poor and I can't afford Dom Perignon, so it said, no, you're not allowed to buy that. Okay, so we're gonna go forward with this. Is there anything I can buy? Is there an ancient idol that might be useful and haunted I can send to somebody who annoys me? So that'll be useful there. Okay, so nothing much we can do with this, right? We can come back to F5 to get to the main menu. We have also in here we have a shipping address. So Philip Young was I want to maybe change the shipping address. So I want to go Kev Milne, Kev Milne, Kev. Street. Right, and that is in Scotland. Okay, so you need a supervisor code. So I can't update where I want that to go. So I could try and guess the supervisor code, invalid supervisor code. Okay, so I can't do that. So I might need to brute force the supervisor code. Okay, so if I go back to the main menu again, we also have an order history there. That's fine. Okay, I'm not going to do anything else with that. Wait, but now if we look at what happens when I switch hack fields on, what we'll see is it removes all the hidden fields and things like that. Well, fingers crossed it does anyway. Okay, so I've switched on the hack fields, right? And now I've seen some hidden fields, such as delete order history, right? Which is going to be useful for me for later on. Okay, so let's see if I can now just order anything that I couldn't order before because I had protected fields, etc. So I'm going to go into the office prize list and shift forward. Printer paper's a bit boring, really. Dom Perignon 1959. Well, I might buy it for my wife. She likes champagne, so I'm not going to pay $84,000 for it though. So I'm going to actually just pay, because although this was a protected field and I couldn't do anything with it before, now I can edit that field because it's taken the protection off the field. Right, shipping cost, I'll be generous on the shipping cost because I know these things cost money to send, so I'm going to give $5. Okay, now remember, I wasn't able to buy it, right? But what we've seen is a hidden field which says purchasable or not purchasable. So let's go. Yes, I can purchase this, and I'm going to purchase it. Let's make sure it's all uppercase. Why? So I've purchased that, and I've purchased it for a total of $6. Okay, so let's go forward. Let's see what else I want. Do I want a MacBook Pro? Nah, I'm not bothered about that, even though I could change it to like $5 or something like that. Hidden idol, Ancient Golden Idol, that'd be good. I'm quite willing to pay top dollar for that, so they can have $8 for that and $6 for that. And I can purchase this. Before I wasn't able to, but the hidden field allows me to order a supply. Great, purchased it. Okay, so great. The problem I've got now is I have to try and ship it, right? And the shipping address is Philip Young, and I won't send it to him. I want to send it to me. Okay, so what we've got here is a code that we could potentially brute force.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's see if we can actually do that. So we've got inject into fields here, another nice thing that they've got in Hack 3270. Okay, so it's been a while since I've done this on one of my pen tests, so hopefully I'll get it the right way round. And I'm going to go File, and the file I'm going to use is 1234. Now I know that it is a DVCA demo, so I'm going to use that file. It's just a text file basically with all the numbers in it. We're going to use that file. I'm then going to set it up. And what it's asking me to do is use a mask so it understands where on the screen in which field I want to try and brute force. So I'm going to go 1, 2, hopefully this will work. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and I will hopefully press enter and that works. So we're going to go inject. And off it goes. So it's trying to inject into that, right, in order to try and break the code. Now, obviously, it's going to be quite easy because otherwise the demo would be a bit pointless, wouldn't it? So it's come back with the code is 1337 leet, right? You might have guessed that one.
Mm.
Okay, so that means now I can change this. No, 123 Kev Street. Sweet. And I'm going to go Edinburgh because it is Edinburgh. And we're going to go Scotland. If I could type, it would be very useful. And it's linked, isn't it? 1337. Press enter. Valid PIN entered. Address updated. Great. I've got that. So I need to come back out. Okay, so look at my order history. And somebody's been buying other stuff on my credit card, which is not great because I didn't want to buy that stuff. So if we imagine that I hadn't been buying anything, I would have Dom Perignon for $1 or $6 altogether and like $15, $16 for this. Now, problem is, when they go to ship it, right, they're going to see that I bought it for $5 or $6. So what we want to do is we want to hide our tracks here. So we're going to go back to that and we're going to go 99, which is delete the order history. That's it. So the order's gone, but we've deleted the order history where they can actually see what the value was. And if we go back into order history, we have deleted the order history. And then we hit F3 to make a quick escape. And we are going to log off from there, which will shut down Kicks. And we can then log off this system as well. Now, as I said, that this system here is completely free to download, and so are all the tools. So if you want to log in, it's this one, right? You can play about with this sort of stuff, and it will expose the system so you can use TSO enum and various other things like that as well. All right. But basically, so at least that demo worked. I go back to PowerPoint presentation because I'm pretty much almost finished. From current slide. Okay, so in summary, mainframes can be exploited. It depends on the config. It's not a case they can't be. Do remember that it was a weak mainframe that we set up today in the same sort of ways if I was doing a Windows sort of demo. I'd probably use Windows 2003, something simple like that to look at Metasploit. Some of them sit out there exposed to the internet, as we saw from the showdown that I just did. There are testing tools, but some of them need updated, right? And the plan is to update some of these tools. Some of these tools are 10 years old. Some of them still work quite well. There's lots of YouTube videos if you want to learn more about this. Look up Soldier of Fortran, or I would also look up Awesome Mainframe Hacking because it's got lots of videos and it's also got a lot more stuff on pen testing. But I would also look at some of the IBM Mainframe Red Books, which is ABC, the ABC Red Books, because that will tell you how mainframes work. There's about 8 books, and I wish I'd read those first because it makes far more sense. And finally, Docker downloads. If you want to get this Docker download, it is on Mainframe D767 DVCA, right, on the Docker Hub. So just install your Docker system, right? Install Docker on your system and do a Docker pull on Mainframe D767 DVCA. Go to the DVCA Docker Hub site and just see how to start the Docker container up, and then you can connect it on 3270. One of the other things you'll need to do is, there we go, just the final thing is, if I log off here and disconnect, you can do a sudo apt install x3270 or c3270. And those are the clients that you're going to need to use in order to connect to your mainframe. But it would just be C3270 localhost or 127.0.0.1 on the port 3270, and it's as simple as that. IBM user, it's one. Sorry, I changed it, remember. Login. Okay. Another place you can have a look for a free mainframe is, do I have it here? I think it might be up here. Will be on the IBM Z trial. So if it's www.ibm.com/z/trials, and they will give you uh, basically a 3-day. Doesn't sound like much. They'll basically give you a 3-day trial. But the good thing is that 3-day trial you can renew as many times as you want. So basically, it's forever. You'll probably struggle to get hacking tools onto the desktop that they give you along with the mainframe. But if you want to look around the mainframe, IBM Z, ibm.com/z/trials, and there you go. So that is really pretty much my presentation. I've gone over my time, Dorota, so I can only apologise for that.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay, but can you still do you still have time? Because I still have like three, four questions.
Yes, absolutely. I've stopped sharing there, so I've got some time to ask questions. Not a problem.
Oh, I had a person typing that address in the chat, so that's good. Thank you. Okay, so my last question is, do you have a hacking philosophy or guiding principle to you live by?
Um, so I think it's important when it comes to hacking to obviously make sure you're within the scope. Don't do anything completely daft. It's always good to help people as much as you possibly can. So if anybody asks any questions, um, to basically help them with that and mentor people. Don't be somebody who goes about going, I am lead. Everybody can help everybody, and somewhere somebody is better than you at hacking in some little way. All right, so everybody can learn from everybody else. So my hacking philosophy is well, be kind to everybody, be keen to help everybody. Make sure you stay within the scope, and you know never give up with regards to if you're trying to break into something, for example. Make sure you stay within the scope, but make sure you try and think outside the box if you possibly can. It's okay following methodologies, but there are sometimes clever ways to do things, and it's interesting to have clever ways to do things, but also help other people if they need help with any of these sort of things as well. And it's good to teach and to give back and give information to people, not just keep it all to yourself. So that's probably my hacking philosophy, I think.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And are there any projects, books, or initiatives you're currently excited about that you'd like to share?
Anything to do with AI is very exciting right now. I absolutely love ChatGPT. It is allowing me to become a programmer. AI and cloud is along with mainframes are very interesting, and they are topics that are really good for pen testing and getting into AI, etc. Is really interesting. Another thing that is kind of interesting but also very scary is quantum computing and quantum cryptography. And it's going to be interesting in the next few years to find out where we go, and whether the whole internet's going to be cracked. So there's a lot of nefarious actors currently harvesting credentials, waiting for the time where they can use quantum computing to and quantum cryptography to crack all the credentials. So that is something that's really interesting. Obviously, as I said, I'm working on my book, and it'll be great when it comes out because it'll be something in my hands that we can say here's a starter for hacking mainframes. Um, and hopefully it will get people outside the mainframe community, especially to go, hey, wait a minute, these things are really important. They are important, and we shouldn't forget about them, and we shouldn't forget about them in red team engagements either. So yeah, that's the stuff that's interests me right now, and I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's amazing answer actually. Yeah, thank you for sharing that because quantum computing I do know about it, but it just yeah I don't really think. But it's actually we should consider that as well that it's coming soon.
If we combine AI with quantum computing, you have a scary prospect coming in the future.
Yeah, and what is a hacker movie or TV show that got it completely wrong or surprisingly right? And another question, like, or maybe you can pick which question you want to answer. What is your favorite hacker movie? So,
Okay, so um, NCS Cyber, I did not enjoy at all. It was terrible, and within 20 minutes, I switched off. So, movies that got it right. First one I watched, 1985, was War Games. I absolutely loved that. And even though it's old tech, I really enjoy it still. Hackers is okay. There's a few things. It's good fun, and I love the soundtrack to Hackers. I love that, but it's not brilliant. Mr. Robot, love it. Really, really good. So those are probably War Games, and Mr. Robot are the ones I think are really good and realistic. NCS Cyber, I'm not keen on. And what was the other question?
yeah, okay,
Was that
actually,
or was that it?
actually, you answered all of them. So, what hacker movie got it completely wrong or surprisingly right? And what is your favorite one? So you answered.
Yeah, War Games is still my favorite hacker movie. Yes, definitely War Games still. I still love War Games, even though it's 1985.
Yeah, actually, I watched it recently, and it's like still really good and very realistic. So it's a very good movie. My
Yeah.
favorite one is, I would say, maybe The Matrix and the TV
Oh,
show, obviously, Mr. Robot. But I also watched The Sneakers recently, like maybe
Sneakers was good.
yeah, a
Yes,
year ago. Very good. Yeah.
yeah, that's your covert access training coming in there. Sneakers is far closer to that. But yeah, I watched Sneakers when it came out in the cinema back in the
Ooh.
1990s, I think. And yeah, it was great as well. Really enjoyed that too.
Okay, and the last, thank you for answering. And the last question, what is your favorite food? Because yeah, yeah, we are foodies
Fa-
here.
Favorite food. If anybody was on Facebook with me, they would see that I do something called evolved cuisine, which really is mush. So it is not great. So my favorite food is ice cream wise, probably Viennetta. Do you know what a Viennetta is?
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
fancy, very, very cheap ice cream. That is that. But I love steak. Love steak. So that is it. I'm not very vegetarian at all, and I'm supposed to be on a keto diet at the moment. So, steak and ice cream. Steak's all right. Ice cream, not so much. But yeah, that's my favorite foods. Not strawberries with pasta like
Yeah,
Polish
like
people do.
yeah. Oh, we also like yeah, I also remember that my mother used to uh, cook pasta and then fry it till it's like golden and add
Wow,
sausage and onions and yeah, that was like actually it's very tasty if you try it.
it sounds amazing. People would think you're strange frying pasta, of course, but yeah, it
Yeah,
sounds brilliant. I will try that.
I hope no Italians in the chat then because
All
yeah,
right.
I don't want to give anyone a heart attack.
No, no.
So
That's
yeah,
okay. Come to Scotland and the food will give you a heart attack. We'll deep fry Mars bars and anything else that you want.
we actually, yeah, it's on my list. I want to try. I don't know if I pronounce it well. Haggis.
Haggis, eh?
Yeah, because I think it's very similar to a dish we have in Poland. It's actually blood sausage, but yeah, I think it's a bit similar.
Yes, yes, yes. It's
Not
it's
not
like
the same.
yeah, like black pudding. Right, we call blood sausage is like black pudding, but haggis is very similar, a bit spicier. But yes, I
Ooh.
love haggis. It's really nice. It is really nice.
Okay, now and now I'm getting hungry here. So
Me too. I haven't eaten yet today. It's been
no,
a busy day.
so okay, I will let you go now. So thank you so much for this presentation. I hope you will agree to. I already suggested that, but I really loved it, and I would like to invite you again for another demo if that's okay with you.
Yeah,
Uh,
anything you want, password cracking or anything infrastructure wise, any of these sort of things. Think of something, and I'm happy to do that sort of stuff because I know this is slightly unusual. So
yeah,
yeah, anything, happy to.
yeah, amazing people are thanking you in the chat as well, and I wanted to thank you for agreeing and coming with like this awesome presentation. And yeah, that's all for me. And thank you. I will
No worries.
change the screen now. But if you
Okay.
have something you want to say at the end, then yeah, go ahead.
No worries. I'll send you all the links to all the useful things and a few other technical bits and pieces so people can play with some of the stuff that we've talked about today. Because that
Great.
is being able to play is good. It's okay to watch, but the best way to learn is to play. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to try yourself and play with it. Yeah, thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me
Bye.
on. Enjoyed it. Bye bye.